So, hi everybody. First of all, great to be here. As Jason just mentioned, today we're going to talk about trust. Why is trust important? Well, the thing I would point out is a good portion of you guys probably have a sense already of that. But if you haven't hit yet a trust issue with your AI systems, what that tells me is you're still in the honeymoon phase. Sooner or later, you're going to run into trust issues when you have to make business decisions that require investment with AI. And we're here to talk about how do we actually put AI to good use so that you can, in fact, trust the decisions you're making with it. Next. So a couple of stats that I always like to start with. A lot of when you ask people about AI, it's kind of like asking people whether they're above average. Everybody's going to tell you they're totally ready. And then what happens is you dig a little bit into it, as we do often with our clients, and what you find out is, half of the people will actually readily let you know that there's a lot of infrastructure skills, data issues that they run into, which actually are critical to understanding whether you can trust your AI systems or not. And so we're going to talk about that today. But really, what I wanted to say through this slide is, look, you may think you're ready. Most people think they're ready. When they're honest with themselves, they realize there's a lot of work that we all have to do together, a lot of it having to do with infrastructure, data, and skill sets. The other issue we run also a lot into, which has to do actually, which you can think of it as an outcome of dealing with data and trusted AI or untrusted AI, is you might have a BI team that throws many dashboards at you. You might also have a data science team generating an endless stream of dev models that you can put into production. You might have a sales team producing their own numbers that disagree with the finance team, that also disagree with the marketing team and the ops team. What we see more and more increasingly with a lot of our clients is way more data, way more reporting. It doesn't always align. If you're one of the few that has a single source of truth, kudos to you. You've accomplished actually something that's really important. Many people struggle with it. And again, a lot of that goes back to the common theme here, which is your data ready? Are you applying proper governed AI to it? Next. The way to tackle it is to first acknowledge what the issues are. So about a year ago, there was a really interesting interview. If you haven't seen it on TechCrunch or other places, you should really go listen to it. The president of Signal, Meredith Whittaker, mentioned six key AI risks that a lot of people doing agentic work and AI work are sometimes tackling, sometimes not, but that are all critical things that you should absolutely have thought about and mitigated in some way before you get to do what I would call responsible AI within an enterprise environment. They're listed here. We're going to go through some of them. Regardless of anything else you might take away from today's talk, I would really encourage you to go back home and think about whether what you're implementing today addresses these six things, because if it's not, sooner or later you'll run into issues. The first one is excessive system access. If you're at the stage where you're implementing agents, and agents might be as simple as you running Claude on your machine, could be as complex as an actual full scale agentic system. Just think through what system access those systems are. They're willing and ready to act. You got to make sure you restrict them the same way you'd restrict a brand new summer intern that just showed up at your company. The second issue that you have to think through is privacy and surveillance. A lot of data flows through these systems. You have to think through PII and how it's being sanitized or handled. A lot of these systems do need unencoded data so that they can actually reason on it. But that means you really need controls in terms of what PII gets passed through. The third one, a bunch of you may not worry about this, but your IT team and your infrastructure team is going to worry about it. App level security is critical. A lot of these agents connect across different apps. And oftentimes, since we're still in the early days of agentic systems, people are not paying enough attention to what is allowed to connect to what, and that creates real security opportunities for security breaches that you just don't want to see in the headlines on Monday morning. The next one is loss of human agency. So one of my personal issues is with autonomous systems. I think that's actually a huge societal issue. The key question here is that one of accountability. If you're delegating agency to a system without a human in the loop, you're basically abdicating the accountability that is essential and fundamental to any system, business or otherwise. So that's a big one. Next, number 5 is also an issue we see all the time, which is the black box issue. If you're just putting a bunch of things through an LLM, regardless of scaling and rate limit issues, you're going to get something back. You have no clue how the AI actually got to its reasoning. You don't know whether it's correct. You don't know if it's been, you can't even vet it. I mean, in many cases. And that's simply not acceptable if you're making a decision to invest media dollars, to invest into an asset, to invest any kind of business budget into a decision. You need to be able to trace the reasoning so that you can vet that it's valid and you're willing to put your own accountability on the line with it. Last but not least, even though it's gotten a lot better over the years, you're still getting a lot of hallucinations with these models. It may not be necessarily critical for tasks like marketing copy, but again, if you're trying to understand performance results, for instance, or make investment decisions, the hallucination risk, even today in July of 2026, is still too high for the purpose of decision making. So how do we tackle it? Well, there's, as always, there's a number of tasks and a number of work streams that need to be tackled, but we think of it at G2M in 5 different pillars. And I would encourage all of you guys to just run this through Claude or ChatGPT or your Grok for that matter, your AI of choice, and come up with your own custom framework. But this will be a good starting point for you to think through, okay, am I addressing these different pillars and why? So let's take them one at a time. The first one is a data foundation. If you think about data, it's really followed a huge evolution over the last 10 years. For centuries, I think every corporation, even going back to the days of the Renaissance, the financial statements, double bookkeeping, T accounts, all that was always critical in establishing trusted financial accounts. And today we take that for granted. You have an income statement, you have a balance sheet, you have a statement of cash flows, you have an accounting process, you might have stock controls over it. Your accounting and financial data is controlled, it's governed. As we move towards this machine-mediated world, you need the same level of accountability and controls and integrity with your operational data, with all your non-accounting data. And that means you got to think about it the same way. You may not use the same process. You may have different types of issues because the data sets are very much different. But as far as the integrity, the control, you have to think of it that way. And another way to think about it as well is your data is becoming a real asset. It's truly enhancing the value of your business. You need to take to be a good steward of it, to apply good stewardship practices so you can make good decisions with it. As a result, you need a trusted data foundation. We'll talk about that some more in a few minutes. The second pillar is transparent reasoning. You just cannot have a black box going on if you're going to make real decisions with it. So there's a lot of ways you can break the black box and make it a glass box. We certainly have our own approach to that. You got to understand cause and consequence. You have to understand what's the chain of whys and answers that led to the reason. What's the level of confidence we have in it? But the point is, you need to think about, okay, how do I understand the reasoning that was applied so I can concur with the decision? Therefore, I can hold myself accountable to the decision. That's really critical. And that actually leads us in the third piece, human oversight. It's really an accountability point. I mean, there's a morality point in it, but it's primarily accountability for today. You can't hold Claude or OpenAI accountable to anything, of course. You hold whoever the business owner is accountable. That means that decision maker needs to be in the loop, needs to agree with the reasoning, with the decisions being made, and approve them. And so that's by design, it needs to be fundamental to how you build your own systems. 4 is more straightforward because that's ubiquitous in all things tech related. You need to make sure that things are secure. The reason we bring it up is the tech is changing so fast right now that there's such an imperative to deliver and to ship systems quickly so that we meet executive expectations. The first thing that'll go out the window is security. And that's creating a potential for huge breaches. You just want to be mindful of that because there's a temptation to play with fire. Just resist the temptation. Make sure that you do the design review and you ensure that the architecture is secure. Last but not least, just because you did it once and you finally shipped something at the end of the week or at the end of the month doesn't mean you should stop looking at it. The validation cycle of looking at the results, looking at your control reports, putting in place mechanisms to detect drift, which is where the model starts losing track of reality. Those are all essentials to continuing to learn and make these systems adaptive. And adaptive will mean better performance, better trust. All right, let's talk about data a little bit. A lot of time, so I think everybody today understands you need data, you need to host it in a way that makes sense. The first question we usually get is, wow, that's a lot of work. We don't do this, or if we do this, it's fragmented. And where do we even start so that we make tangible progress? I'd give you a few pointers on that. If you're not already in a cloud-based, data warehouse environment, pick a provider and start. Start small. You can pick Snowflake, you can pick Databricks, you can pick Redshift, you can pick Fabric with Microsoft or anybody else that suits your needs. But the point is, start with a cloud-based data warehouse environment. Make sure that you set up a dev environment so you can start experimenting. Pick an area of the business. It might be operational volumes. If you're telecom operators, pick your subscribers. It might be the marketing budget. It might be sales ops. Pick an area where you have control of the data, put in the cloud, and start thinking about what your canonical data model should be, which is how should the data set be structured? How should the pipelines be structured? We typically at G2M take an approach that's known as the medallion architecture, which means that we're stepping your data through a series of layers from sourcing all the way to semantic and reporting. Again, we're happy to talk to you, but think through what that data architecture is in terms of both the data pipelines as well as the semantic structure of the data you're going to be interrogating with your analytics and your AI systems. Once you have the data environment properly done, even if it's just with a small scope, be agile, you'll be able to plug into it a broad variety of visualization systems like Power BI, a broad variety of AI systems as well. But it'll be an absolutely essential start. The second question we get is, gee, okay, I have my data environment. I've been in Snowflake for a while. What do I do with it now? So the first thing I would tell you there is, look, there's a plethora of applications today. You already know this. I'm assuming you're here because you've seen it and you've been overwhelmed by it. The first thing I would tell you is, given whichever environment you're in. So if you're in Snowflake, go play with Cortex, which is their agent and an AI solution. If you're in Databricks, go play with Genie. Start looking at, okay, how can we get AI systems to work? The very first thing you're going to get out of it is untrusted results, and you'll see that they're highly variable once you work through the kinks. But it'll be incredible training value and discovery value for you to do that. Once you're there, what you're going to start understanding is, to get to the trust piece, context management is essential. What that means is you have to encapsulate all of the knowledge about your company, which is basically encapsulated in your KPIs and how they relate to each other, in your dimensional hierarchies, in a bunch of other documents that you have that describe how your business works. You'll have to start thinking about, okay, how do we structure this in a machine-friendly way? There's a variety of doing that. Knowledge graphs are one way of doing it. And more importantly, how do we think about the different layers of context management and orchestrations? And again, different applications do that for you. You can build your own, but it'll be really important to have a point of view on how you do context management and orchestration in order to have trusted AI. So when we do these things, what do we get out of it? What's the outcome? What's the benefit? So we have a couple of studies we're going to walk through, and if you guys have questions, we'll certainly be very happy to entertain them after this. But these were just two ways of explaining kind of the work we do, and we're not the only ones in the space. Again, this is more, think of this as illustrative of the type of work you could do once you decide to marshal resources to do that, and how do we do it and what we deliver. So in this case, one of our clients was a private equity-backed fiber operator. They were scaling fast. They lacked the data, the visibility, the discipline to kind of make sure they knew where to deploy their capital, and they wanted to use technology to really help them guide where to deploy capital and make sure that it would get a good ROI, meeting expectation on each dollar of capital deployed. So what did we do? Well, we put in place those trusted AI pillars for them. with them, in partnership with them. We built a unified analytics foundation. So back to my data environments point, make sure that they had a consistent canonical data model, all KPIs defined, relatable to each other, a robust context management with it. And that enabled us to produce at speed and at scale executive ready insights so that people could spend less time figuring out what the numbers were, less time which way was up, and all the time was devoted to, okay, where's the capital deployed today? Where are the holes? What next steps are we taking? What competitive responses are we putting in markets to make sure we keep maximizing share? And instrumenting and enabling the business that way was incredibly effective. It enabled them to grow 2 to 3x over the next in this case, 2 years in their respective markets, strengthen their effectiveness and their positioning across all markets that we're in, and it was just incredibly effective. And then we put at the bottom one of the comments by the CEO, and it was just a great partnership. We were able to deliver a lot of value there. So, but again, what I want to emphasize here is less. This is not about G2M. This is about if you have the right playbook and you're incredibly data driven and disciplined and put these processes in place, you will get to the same outcome. The second case study is different yet similar in its structure and its outcomes. Another private equity backed operator, very similar needs in terms of, hey, we have a lot of money to deploy. We want to make sure it's deployed in the right places. Things are going fast. We need to know how to act, where to act, and whether it's working. Trusted pillars, same thing. Put in place a good data environment that was properly structured with all the context, all the data feeds that are needed. Deployed a variety of machine learning tools so that we could get to good, quick insights on who to target, how to target them, with what mix of touch points and whatnot. Established quick data feedback and insights that led to really quick cycle times on executive action. You get results from the field right away, and you're ready to act right away and respond to competitive threats and actually outplay your competitors. And here again, not surprisingly, we see very similar results: 200% revenue growth over the next year or two, 16% improvement in marketing effectiveness. Met or exceeded business case financing from their investors to the tune of, in this case, sort of $200 million investment. And so here again, the same theme that I want you to take away is, look, this is not rocket science, but it is discipline. It's execution and planning discipline of putting in place the data feeds you need, making sure that you care for them with the same level of rigor than you would with your financial statements, and use technology to your advantage so that you get to the insights real time, not next month.